We normally talk nonsense, don't we, when we meet up?
The first couple minutes is usually Bill telling me about pickleball.
No, it's normally to start with, it's a couple minutes of work, like serious stuff. Like you'll tell me if someone's emailed you or something. And then it's just nonsense.
Then it's pickleball.
We're in our studio in Bideford, which is on the north coast of Devon.
So we work side by side, but separately, which is how I like it. I just love animals, and if I see a cat, I just want it to be really close to my face.
Yeah, it's a childlike kind of emotion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just to hug it.
I just want to hug it. I've always felt like that, and I've never grown out of it. And I've learnt to hide it, but now with my work, I don't need to hide it. I can sort of put it there front and centre. So they are characters to me, and I always feel like the work needs to have sort of a narrator or a character at the forefront, whether that is the vessel or the cat or something with a face. I find those are the ones that speak to me the most. At the heart of it, the joy and the fun of drawing that I had when I was a child is still there. I like to think that I draw with feeling rather than sort of a preconceived idea. I like to illustrate stories, and for me it's a way of preserving stories in a way that they will be here for a long time. This is the Dead Dad book, which is a diary that my sisters and my mum kept when we found out that my dad had died. So we didn't know until 7 years after his death that he had died. And I used this as the starting point to make 12 pots about my dad's life that are now in the permanent collection of the V&A. My dad had a lot of problems. He was an alcoholic. He couldn't hold down a job or anything. He left us when we were quite young. I think I'd probably be about 8 or 9. He left and didn't actually say where he was going. This piece is called Wexford People, and the title of it comes from the Irish newspaper article written about my dad after he died. So the panels take extracts of the article, and each part of it tells the story of my dad's journey to Ireland and him living there for 5 years in the woods and dying there, and his body wasn't discovered until 2 months after he died. When I first read this, it gave me quite a lot of information about my dad that I didn't know. He'd been living in a woods in a homemade log cabin, sort of living a fairly quiet, homeless life, and just sort of collecting his doll, going to the pub to drink. It just sounded mad to sort of find all this information about him, that built his character. Oh, that's me. I think that's the only photo I've got half my head of my dad. When I'm working from it on the pot, it hasn't been like, this is my dad. It's just, this is a person's story. When I got to the bit about him, and it says here, Mr. Lindo is believed to have 4 daughters living in England and was making tentative arrangements for a visit from some of them at Christmas. That it suddenly sort of hit home. That's my dad, and he was thinking of us. So yeah, it sort of gives me a bit of a chill, even now when I read that bit.
Today we're making a ceramic amphora. I'm slip casting it and Vicky is decorating it. To make the amphora, I started with mixing the clay. And then it goes through quite a few processes. It gets sieved a few times to remove the impurities. This is the last sieving, the finest one. When it's the right thickness, it feels warm. That doesn't make sense. But when you're pulling your finger through it, it almost feels warm. I don't know how to explain that. If it's too thick, it feels cold. Put this in there the right way around. I used to empty this by hand, but it just did my back in. And so I made a cradle that just rotated for this mould and similar moulds. So at the moment, I'm just strapping the mould at the sort of centre point of the cradle, so it's as balanced as it can be. I'm using ratchet straps and an air wedge so that I can rotate it fully 180 degrees and also spin it. That's ready to fill now. And then it'll stay like that for an hour or so. And then I have to write it, take it out, and then leave it upside down for a little bit longer, just to set up a little bit longer before we demould it.
Bill's a bottom up person. He likes to make sure there's good foundation to everything, and I'm a top down, so I'm completely doing it the wrong way around. It's a very sunny spot here, so I thought we'd take full advantage of that and try and grow some tomatoes this year. It's been reasonably successful. We get quite a lot of butterflies and bees coming.
The important part emptying it is to get the timing right, the speed right, because if you empty it too quickly, you get a kind of like a partial vacuum, which can pull the set clay away from the mould and deform what we're trying to make. I'm going to try and have a nice controlled pour without too much glugging. Yes, this first part's important, just to drain the bit that's sort of in the neck of it. And once it opens out to the sort of the main body, it'll drain much quicker. But if I rush it, it'll pull away from the side of the mould and collapse. When I'm working, I often think, what does Vic want? How will she decorate this? What will work? And just having a flat, perfect surface is kind of boring, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you need some movement in it to sort of give you something to work with.
Yeah, I find it difficult to work on sort of a perfect surface. I'm much more organic, whereas you're much more lab tested.
I'm going to open up the mould, take the mould apart, unstrap it, take the casting out of the mould, ready for the next stage. We're going to flip it over and then attach the foot. They usually start off as Frankenstein shapes. So obviously it's inspired by, historical pots, drawings that Vic has done, ideas that I've had. Yeah, it will have evolved from a body of work and research and thinking. Making things with castings like this is that you can have time to take an element that you particularly like and you can literally chop it out and add it to the next thing. I can extend it, make it a bit taller, make it a bit wider, add to it, change it, think about it, look at it, come back to it, and then make the mould from it. There's always an improvement to be made, isn't there? And so it is always some kind of snaking evolution. This will have been a sort of reaction to the pot I made previously and to the one previous to that. An amphora is just an ancient Greek name for a certain type of pot. And this kind of resembles that two-handled pot with a neck and shoulders like this. And so we call it that. And obviously when you're making something that you really care about and you've sort of spent a lot of time thinking about, and it becomes, you know, very important to you, at that moment while you're making it, it's your obsession and that's your total focus. And as soon as it's finished and you put it in the kiln, then you have to immediately sort of try and switch that off and just leave it to the kiln and accept whatever happens. Often when I'm working, I'll have a mantra. If I feel like I'm being distracted, I'll often say to myself, what am I doing and why? What am I doing and why? You know, trying to answer the why am I doing what I'm doing stops me from doing something. Whereas Vic doesn't have that break. She's not thinking, why am I doing this? She's just doing it. We both do things and bring things to the work that individually we couldn't.
I think you'd never finish anything.
No?
If I wasn't there.
No. The kiln would still be unfired. I'd still be waiting to put the best pot in there.
Because it wouldn't, you'd never be happy, would you? So the Dead Dad series of 12 pots, they do work individually. So each one tells a different story. And I didn't actually make them in order, 1 to 12. I made the 12 of them and then realised that there was a story once I started putting them together. All the work that I make it for myself. It's just a way for me to work through things. People that see it imprint their own story on it anyway. It means something to them. They'll pick up things about parents, abandonment, alcoholism, and it'll ring true in their own stories. So it's a shared story. Once it leaves me, it has its own life. When I was younger, I was quite angry with my dad because he left us. So I was a bit like, forget about him. He doesn't care about us. Now that I'm older and I've got my own daughter, I'm almost the same age he was when he died. I sort of realised he'd been through a lot. He'd been through a lot in his life. He sort of left his home country, Jamaica, when he was 11, and living in London in the 60s and 70s, that must have been tough. His mum abandoned him, left him with his stepdad. He was always running away from home. I think that's all he knew. And he'd just been through a lot to kind of cope. And living in the woods on his own was his way of coping. And I completely understand that now. I feel so sad that he was just kind of forgotten about. There was nobody there for him. He really did need help, and there wasn't really help for him. I sort of wonder now if he was able to sort of come to terms with his trauma, whether he would still be alive now. I'm using a technique called Sgraffito. I have about 3 or 4 layers of blue underglaze on white clay on this one, and then just using a sharp tool you can etch your design in and then take away the parts that you don't want there to reveal the clay underneath. I like this technique because it sort of gives you a really nice graphic edge. You get a nice sharp edge to it, because I'm quite a wibbly wobbly person. So I can do my wibbly wobbly stuff, but it sort of gives it a nice finish. But it's quite addictive. It just takes you a long time to do it, but there's something very satisfying about scraping things off. I'm really inspired by North Devon slipware that was made here sort of over the past few hundred years. I used to work in the local museum and they've got an amazing collection there. And I just remember sort of being allowed to see it up close and just could feel that the maker's connection with the work, sort of the fingerprint of the maker on the work. And that just really appealed to me, to be able to make something that's so personal to you and not having to worry about what it looks like. They were literally sort of digging the clay out of the ground and sort of cobbling shapes together just so that they could decorate it, and it really struck a chord with me because that's what I want to do. I just want to embellish clay. A lot of the motifs on this particular one have been inspired directly by some of the motifs found on those pots. So they're sort of floral, the floral aspects of it that have been put on. It's traditional, but I'm doing it my way.
Oh, you've got crumbs in your hair.